You know, the very drugs that saved our grandparents' lives, they're starting to fail. Seriously. Antibiotics, the absolute bedrock of modern medicine, are in a silent, losing war against superbugs. And the system that we trust to come up with new ones? Well, it's broken. But what if we could just reboot the whole scientific process? Let's dive into how a pretty radical new movement is building a bridge over a place with the ominous name, the Valley of Death.
Right off the bat, the stakes could not be higher. This isn't some far-off sci-fi movie plot. This is a direct projection from the World Health Organization. What that number really means is a future where a routine surgery could become a death sentence, where a simple infection could be completely untreatable, all because our pipeline for new antibiotics has just run dry. This is the crisis we are here to talk about solving.
So what's actually stopping us from finding new cures? Well, it's this systemic issue known in the biotech world as the Valley of Death. Think of it as this: treacherous gap between a brilliant idea in a lab and a life-saving drug in a hospital. And for antibiotics, that valley has become a massive chasm, basically swallowing up promising research because the economic models we've used for decades are just fundamentally broken for this one specific problem.
All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with the crisis itself. Then we'll dissect the systemic failure behind it. And then we'll introduce this revolutionary new paradigm, DeSci. We're going to look at how it works, what makes its economic engine run, and then we'll ask the really big question: could this be the next frontier for all of science?
Okay, so first up, let's talk about just how deep this crisis really is, because understanding the sheer scale of the problem, well, it's absolutely crucial for appreciating just how elegant the solution we're about to explore really is. Just look at this number for a second. 30+ years. That's how long it's been since a truly new class of antibiotics was discovered and actually brought to market. For 3 whole decades, we've basically been sharpening old swords, while the enemy, these drug-resistant bacteria, has been evolving brand new armor at a terrifying pace. This isn't just a slowdown, it's a catastrophic stagnation. So why the stagnation? This slide really breaks it down perfectly. Yeah, research is fragmented, and sure, the regulations are incredibly expensive, but that third point, that's the real killer. The economics are completely upside down. I mean, why would a company invest $1 billion in a 10-day cure you only take once when they could fund a lifelong treatment for, say, cholesterol? The hard, cold truth is, they won't. And that right there, that is the heart of the Valley of Death.
And this brings us right to the root cause. See, it's not about the scientists, and it's not a lack of brilliant ideas. It's the system, the old legacy funding model that decides what gets discovered in the first place.
This slide just illustrates the contrast so starkly. The old system is basically a black box. Funding decisions are made behind closed doors, access is restricted to a small club of established insiders. The incentives, they favor safe, small, incremental work over bold, risky breakthroughs. And the entire process is just painfully, bureaucratically slow. What we need is its polar opposite, a system that's transparent, that's open to everyone, that aligns all the players towards one common goal, and that moves at the speed of innovation.
And if you need proof of the gatekeeping, just look at this stat. The NIH gives a mere 2% of its funding to scientists under 36. Now, that's not just a bias. It's a system that is actively shutting out the next generation of innovators. It's a critical failure. And you know, if you agree that understanding these deep systemic problems is important, do us a favor and take a second to support our work. Like this explainer and subscribe to Digi-Gold for more deep dives just like this one.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the disease. Now let's talk about the cure. And this isn't just some new policy or a bigger government fund. We're talking about a completely new operating system for science itself, and it's called DeSci. DeSci simply stands for Decentralized Science, and at its very core, it's a movement that uses Web3 technologies, you know, the next evolution of the internet, to build a public, open infrastructure for science. The whole goal is to tear down the walls of that old closed system and create one that is fundamentally more transparent, more collaborative, and frankly, a lot more fair.
Now, this movement is built on 4 pretty revolutionary pillars. First, open access. No more paywalls. Knowledge is treated as a public good. Second, permissionless participation. You don't need a fancy degree from an elite institution to contribute or fund an idea. Third, tokenized incentivization, using digital assets to reward contributions and align everyone, scientists, funders, even patients, towards a shared goal. And finally, community-driven governance. The people actually funding and doing the science get to make the decisions.
So how is any of this even possible? Well, the foundation is the blockchain,
Basically, a shared, unchangeable public record book. And for science, this is revolutionary. It means data is tamper-proof, funding is totally transparent, and we can replace trust in these opaque institutions with verifiable proof on a global network. And the organizational structure that runs on this is the DAO, a decentralized, autonomous organization. Think of it like a research collective, but with no CEO. Instead, the members use tokens to vote on everything, like which antibiotic compound to fund next. It's a completely bottom-up structure that is built for massive, global-scale collaboration.
All right, enough theory. Let's get into how this actually works. From an analyst's perspective, this is where it gets really fascinating. We're moving from these abstract ideas to a concrete, investable workflow. This workflow is the core innovation. So picture this. A researcher has a brilliant idea. Instead of dealing with the slow, expensive patent office, they create a proof of invention, a secure, time-stamped record on the blockchain. Then, that idea gets turned into an IP-NFT, which is a unique digital asset representing ownership. This NFT is then fractionalized into thousands of IP tokens, which are sold to a global community to raise funds. And finally, those token holders, they form a DAO to govern the project. A scientific discovery has just become a liquid, community-owned asset. Let's just zoom in on that first step for a second. Proof of invention. Before spending a fortune on lawyers and patents, a researcher can instantly create this immutable public proof that an idea was theirs at a specific moment in time. This is an absolute game changer that completely democratizes intellectual property protection for everyone. And then you have the IP tokens. Now, the crucial point here is this. These tokens aren't just for speculation. They represent real rights. The right to vote on the research direction, the right to weigh in on licensing deals, and, as we're about to see, the right to share directly in the financial upside. It transforms passive funders into active, empowered stakeholders.
And right here, you can see the perfect symmetry of the solution. Opaque funding decisions, they become transparent DAO voting on-chain. Data silos, replaced by decentralized open storage. Limited access to intellectual property, that becomes a liquid global market of IP tokens. You see, every single legacy problem has a direct DeSci solution.
And look, this isn't just a theory. A really vibrant ecosystem is already being built. You've got platforms like Molecule, which are essentially factories for turning IP into these tradable assets. You have Research Hub, which acts like a decentralized scientific journal. And you even have AI-powered bioagents that are just generating new hypotheses for the community to test and fund. It's pretty wild.
And when you start connecting these platforms, you get this incredibly powerful self-reinforcing flywheel. An AI generates a hypothesis, scientists on Research Hub validate and refine it, the idea gets tokenized on Molecule, the DAO funds the work, and the results then feed back to make the AI smarter for the next round. This is how you accelerate discovery on an exponential scale.
Okay, the system is elegant. I think we can all agree on that. But from an institutional analyst's viewpoint, there's one question that trumps all the others. Does it work economically? How do the people who fund this very early-stage research ever see a return on their investment?
Yeah, let's just address this question head-on. If you're an early backer of a promising antibiotic compound through these IP tokens, you're not just making a donation, right? You're making an investment. So what are the actual tangible pathways to a financial return on that investment?
Well, the DeSci ecosystem has developed a surprisingly sophisticated toolkit for distributing value. It's not just one path, it's a whole menu of options. These include things like royalty tokens, pathways to convert your tokens into actual company equity, special rights in later funding rounds, and even NFTs that represent ownership in new spin-off discoveries.
So let's start with royalty tokens. Imagine the antibiotic research our DAO funded is successful and gets licensed to a huge pharmaceutical company. That deal, it generates revenue. Well, a portion of that revenue can be automatically tokenized and distributed directly to the IP token holders' digital wallets. It is a direct on-chain link between real-world commercial success and the community that backed it from day one.
But this right here is where DeSci builds a really powerful bridge to the traditional financial world. New frameworks are being built that create legally compliant ways for token holders to convert their tokens into actual shares in a startup that's built around the IP. You can literally go from on-chain governance to formal off-chain ownership with full shareholder rights.
And this isn't science fiction, it's already on store shelves. Percepta Sport, a brain health supplement, went from a simple vote in the Cerebrum DAO all the way to being sold in Walmart and on Amazon. This is the proof that the entire model can work, from a decentralized community idea to a real product in a shopping cart. We're about to give our final verdict, but before we do me a favor. Share this explainer with a colleague and let us know what you think about DeSci DAO in the comments below.
So, we've seen the crisis, we've seen the broken system, and we've seen the elegant DeSci solution. What's the final verdict here? Is this truly the future of science?
Well, the momentum is pretty undeniable. Right now, there are over 50 active DeSci projects that have collectively pulled in more than $60 million in funding. Now look, that's still a drop in the bucket compared to the legacy pharma world, but this isn't some niche experiment anymore. It's a rapidly growing ecosystem, and it's attracting serious capital and serious talent.
But let's be clear-eyed and balanced about this. The promise is absolutely immense. Radical transparency, democratized access, and accelerated innovation. However, the perils are also very real. The regulatory landscape is still being written as we speak. DAO governance can be messy, and there are still big technical challenges around data privacy and scalability that have to be solved. This is a frontier, and every frontier carries risk.
So, we'll end with this question. The antibiotic crisis is one of science's most wicked, intractable problems. If this new model, this fusion of community, blockchain, and science can finally build a durable bridge over that valley of death, what comes next? Longevity? Rare diseases? Climate science? What other monumental challenges that have been long ignored by the old system are now just waiting to be solved on this new, open frontier for science?